Hello. Today we are going to start talking about the distributive property to simplify expressions. We talked about this a little bit the other day, and you have been using the distributive property for a very long time, really since third grade. For right now, make sure your name and the date are at the top of the paper. And then I'd like you to look down here. If they aren't there, just pause this and then you can write your name and the date. The first thing we need to do is it says show two ways to simplify the following expression. Well, we all know from order of operations that 4 plus 3 in parentheses is going to give us 7. Let me make sure I have this pen working here. Okay, so 4 plus 3 is 7, and that's in the parentheses. Yes, I had to go back to using my mouse. Sorry about that. And this means it's 5 times 7, or what's in the parentheses. So 5 times 7 is 35. Okay. Now, is there another way I could do this? Yeah, well, of course, because I said show two ways. The other way I would do it is by multiplying 5 by each of the terms in the parentheses. So first I would multiply 5 times 4, and I hope you're doing this with me. And then I would add that, because the sign between them is addition, I'd add that to 5 times 3. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 3 is 15. And I know when I add those two together, I do get 35. So in either way, I get the same answer. That's good to know because we might have to use one of these two ways to solve the distributive property. Give me 1 second. I want to see if I can get my pen working. Well, I can't get my pen to work, so I'm going to go back to the mouse. The next question says, well, what would we have done if one of the numbers in the parentheses was a variable? I certainly can't add 4 plus x because they are not like terms. But I sure can multiply. I can always multiply things together. I can't add them unless they are alike. So I'm going to just draw my arrows so you can see and so you can remember. And by the way, once you start doing this, you might want to draw the arrows every time. This way you just remember that you have to distribute everything. So we're going to do 5 times 4, and I'm going to write it out step by step so you don't forget. 5 times 4, and then I'm going to add that to 5 times x. Well, I can't really do much with 5 times x, so it's probably going to just stay 5x. 5 times 4 is 20, and we have 5x. Now, I can't combine those because they are not like terms, so I keep it just this way. Now, standard form, this is not wrong, but standard form is to always list the variables first. So you'd do 5x, and then you'd add that to 20, because the constants almost always go at the end. It's not wrong, it's just standard form. So let's write down a few things, and I will try to write neatly, I promise. The what property says that in a multiplication problem, when one of the factors is rewritten as the sum of two numbers, the product does not change. Obviously, since we're talking about the distributive property, that's what we're talking about here. So I'm going to write in cursive, distributive property. Oh gosh, maybe I'm going to. Distributive. Wish my pen worked. Distributive property. And it's at the top of the sheet, so if you don't know how to spell it, you can just look up above. For example, 5 times what can be written as 5 times 3 plus 1? Well, in parentheses, I know 3 plus 1 is 4, so that is the same thing as 5 times 4. Down here, though, it says 15 plus 5x can be written as what? Well, they're not like terms. I can't add them together, but I know they both have a common factor of 5. So I can pull the 5 out. Oh, let me just check my work here. What's 5 times 3? Well, that's 15. That's right here. What's 5 times x? Well, that's 5x. That's right here. So that does work. That's the way to simplify this, and we're going to need to know that in the future. So make sure you have all these notes before I go to the next page. Okay. We are going to try some problems together. This is our first problem right here. We have -2 times 2 minus 4. Wow, this is a hard problem. I'm going to distribute -2 and positive 2x, and I'm going to distribute -2 and 4. But now I want you to pay close attention. There is a minus sign between these two. That's going to make things pretty crazy. -2 times positive 2. Think about it for a second. It's -4x because there's an x there. I can't do anything with it. But now I have a -2 and I have a -4 or a -4. A negative times a negative is a positive, so I should write plus 8. And there's nothing more to do. This is just simplifying this. Another way to do this is -8 times x, -8 times 3. I'm on the next problem. I hope that you followed me. So it's -8x. Now -8 times positive 3 is a -24. Okay? Let's try this one. Looks a little bit easier actually. 5 times 3y is 15y. 5 times 2 is 10. They're both positive, so it's a plus sign in between. Okay, I'm going to do this next one with you, and then I'm going to let you try some on your own. -7 is distributed to the first term, and it's distributed to the second term. So -7 times 5t. Well, 7 times 5 is 35. I have to include the t because nothing changes with that. It's a negative here, -7 times positive 5, so it's a -35. Now I have 7 times 3, which is 21, but I have a -7, and this sign looks like a -3 or a -3, so it's a positive 21. And I hope you can see that this is actually a t, not a plus sign. Okay, down below here, we have -1 times 3. We also have -1 times x. So -1 times 3 is -3. -1 times x is just -1x, but I don't have to write the 1, it's assumed, so it's -3 minus x. And please remember, I almost always put the exponent, or the variables first. Sorry, these are variables. And the sign stays with the variable. So this is -x. This is a -3. So if I'm rewriting it, I'm rewriting as -x minus 3. Let's try this next one. Now this next one is tricky because there's no number outside the parentheses. I did this purposely. I want you to see that it's really like saying -1 outside the parentheses because I have -1 of all of this stuff. So I'm going to multiply this by -1 times 3 and then -1 times y. -1 times 3 is -3. -1 times y is -y. I should rewrite this. So it's -y minus 3. Variables almost always go first. Okay, take a second and make sure you have all this. I'm going to go to the next page here, move down further. I hope I am anyway. Okay, here we go. We're at the end. Now, in this next one, we have a fraction. I know when you see those fractions, you get a little bit panicky, but no need to panic. 1/2 of x is just 1/2 x. Now, if I take 1/2 and multiply it by 6, I'm really saying 1/2 of 6. 1/2 of 6 is 3. That's all there is to it. You're done. Now, this next one is a little bit trickier. See if you can start it without me. Maybe even pause this. If I have -1/4 times 8 1/4 of 8. That means I'm going to divide 8 by 4. It's 2. And it's a negative because it's negative 1/4. Then I have 1/4 of y. I can't do anything with that. So I'm going to write 1/4 of y. And the sign between is a negative because a negative times a positive is a negative. Now, I need you to also understand this too. 1/4 of y is really the same thing as saying y over 4. And this is a negative. And I'm just rewriting these in the different order. You need to be able to write them in both orders. Okay, I hope this made sense. Try some problems on your own.